Okay, great.
Okay, Andrew, for listening in.
Okay, so I think a lot of you heard kind of what we're going to do today. What we're going to start with is talking about the Central Committee elections that are going on in Alameda County and in Contra Costa County and other counties too. But the ones we're concerned with are these two counties because that's where our membership is at. And our Revolution East Bay in the two counties has 4 board members running, several members. There's other people. Everybody's very strong, progressive, committed to the same things. So I'm going to have Susana talk a little bit about their county, and then I'm going to ask Yoana if she would talk about our county. Alameda County, my county. Okay, Susana.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks. Thanks, Carol. God, seriously, it's been that kind of day. It's the rain. I'm blaming it all on the rain. Okay, so Central Committee, yeah, it's that little role that nobody really knows too much about, but it's actually kind of important because it gives you a vote at your county central committee. Central committees are actually regulated by the official California elections code. So they do have an important role in the political process. And in Contra Costa County, we have over the last 4 or 5 years really changed the makeup of our central committee. Progressive values are right at the top of the forefront. We tend to get the a number of votes required to do a lot of really good things out here. So it has been a welcome change from when I first joined. In like 2017, when I first got elected to be an ADEM delegate, I was an associate. Associates had no voice or anything like that. So we've made a lot of changes, and it's a good thing. So right now we put together a slate in Contra Costa County, which has been endorsed by our Revolution National, Working Families Party, and a whole bunch of other progressive organizations. They have done a phenomenal job. We're supervisorial districts in Contra Costa, so that's a little different than Alameda, who are assembly districts. So 2 of our supervisorial districts aren't on the ballot because there was only the number of people running that there were seats, which is awesome. In my district, I was elected along with 2 other strong progressives. And in District 5, we have at least 1, if not 2, our Revolution East Bay members who were elected there as well. So we're off to a good start in Contra Costa. Right now, we have Devin Murphy, Jamin Purcell, and Cameron Sasai, all 3 running in District 1. We have endorsed them, our Revolution East Bay, for other endeavors, all 3 of them. In District 2, we have Marisol Rubio and her daughter, Alex Rubio Talavera, running. We have currently endorsed Marisol for her state Senate run, and we've endorsed her in the past as well. And in District 4, which is probably going to be the most competitive district, there's a lot of people running. Some very well-known establishment candidates are out there. We have Michelle Simone, Ina Silva, our own fabulous Ina, Laura Patch, and Leslie Baxter. So strong candidates all around the way. Everybody's doing a lot of work getting endorsements. If any of y'all have some extra money, they can all use some extra donations. They've got a strong strategy moving forward. There's going to be a media campaign. Our Revolution National and all of the groups that have endorsed them will also be doing some work on their behalf. And then Adi Alvera has been managing this particular slate, and she has done an amazing job, and she has really put a lot of time and energy and expertise into this. Jamin's partner, Kelly, has done a lot of work. I was super impressed by a spreadsheet he rolled out this morning, literally dissecting each of the districts and talking about how many people in there had voted X number of times, et cetera, for our texting strategy. So if anybody has any questions, holler, drop them in chat. But I think we're in really good shape. We'd certainly like to get every single person on the slate elected. Every single person deserves it and are a strong progressive. They're already putting in the work. And so we want them to have a voice and make our central committee even more progressive. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you so much. We've invited Yoana Tchoukleva to come today. She's an OREB member and she's a delegate in District 18 and she's running for the Central Committee in District 18 and she's a very big leader of this county in getting us elected. Okay, Yoana, welcome.
Thank you, Carol. That's such a sweet introduction. Good evening, good day, beautiful people. Thanks for being here. I am Yoana, and I'm one of the folks running on the People-Powered Progressive slate in AB 18. I think you most probably have already heard of us. We're running in order to bring the people's voice to a local Democratic Party. And for us, the slogan, it's not something we say when we want to get elected. It is actually practice. We've been showing up and we've been doing the work in the last years, but at least
you're cracking up a little bit.
Going to Central Committee meeting.
Yoana, do you want to try without your video and see if you come through a little stronger?
Yeah, right now we don't hear you at all.
Yeah. Carol, do you think maybe Alfred's on the call too? Do you think maybe Alfred could fill in?
Well, I don't know. We could ask him.
Hey. What do you like me to fill in on?
On why it's important that people vote for the people power.
I'm happy.
Here she's back.
Can we come back in 1 minute?
Yeah, sure. You could speak for a minute if you want, Alfred.
Okay. Yeah, so for people like us, we're really involved. We research the candidates, we talk to them, we know where they stand. But for a lot of ordinary voters, they just look at who does the Democratic Party endorse? And that's why the Central Committee is important, is because the Central Committee members vote on who the Democratic Party endorses at the local level, which means county, city, special district, school board. Central Committee members also serve as delegates at the state party, so they also vote on who the state party endorses for things such as U.S. Senator, state legislature, governor. So, yeah, that's why it's important to elect progressives, because that's how you get progressives endorsed, and that's how you get progressives elected.
Okay. Does it work for you to speak now, Yoana? If not,
Kalimah is here too.
yeah, Kalimah has just arrived. Okay, so we're having a little bit of audio problem with Alana calling in, and she was speaking about why it's important to support us, the people-powered progressives. And I think Kalimah Priforce might be able to add a little bit to that.
Hey everyone, hi. I am in San Francisco, actually attending a Telegraph Hill dwellers event around housing. That a lot of the neighborhoods here are pretty fed up with what's been going on in terms of Sacramento housing, and so there's a lot of electeds here. Aaron Peskin is chairing the meeting, and yeah, so I'm just happy to be here. But I mean, so I'm here not just as Emeryville council member, but as a part of the People Power Progressive slate. That these conversations are happening all across the state, all across our region of the Bay Area, but most importantly in Alameda County, that people are wondering, why is it that the most progressive and bluest county in the state of California isn't resisting some of the corporate interests and political mechanisms that are happening from the state? That as the state is going right, San Francisco seems to be going right, and that where are we? Are we heading right with them? And our People Power Progressive slate is supportive of Barbara Lee, Bid, and many other progressives who have been saying things that are considered controversial to our Democratic Central Committee as it relates to ceasefire, as it relates to several issues, and our slate for the past several years has been organizing to make sure that progressive issues are at the top of the agenda. So if the members of our slate didn't exist, then we would probably be going right on many issues. And so I want to kick it off to Yoana, who will do a deeper dive as to why this is important. But I'm happy to be here having this conversation, and people are excited about our People Power Progressive slate and how countywide we are, and how it's been amazing that we're fighting for progressives to have a voice in our local Democratic Party. And so I'll kick it off to Yoana.
Thanks, Kalimah. So sorry for the interruption. I'm going to keep it brief. I know that the agenda is super packed. I think where I got interrupted was saying that for us, when we say that we're bringing the people's voice to the local Democratic Party, that's not a slogan. It's a practice. It's something we've been doing and showing up for now for a long time, from getting the ceasefire resolution passed at the Central Committee meeting at the end of October, right? Like right on November 1st, when nobody wanted to touch this issue because it was so controversial, to passing the resolution to call for the recall of DA, to oppose the recall of DA Price, to so many other issues. We're here, we're showing up, we're writing resolutions, we're analyzing bills, and then we're doing the actual work, making the phone calls on behalf of Protect the Wind from the Central Committee, so that we are not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. And similarly, right now, we're showing up and doing the work when we go to, meetings in the community that are about public safety with local business owners and local movement leaders. And we're listening and we're learning from what the community needs so we can better represent them. And we're canvassing and showing up at doors, and Alfred's making beautiful graphics, and Paola is talking to everybody about the Central Committee and our work, because this is who we are. We are the people's representatives. And then very lastly, we're also diverse, both, of course, racially and ethnically and background-wise, but also age-wise, also profession-wise, and from the places, right? The histories that we represent. And we are the only county-wide slate, which I think is honestly a kind of a miracle. It takes a lot to organize this many people. And the reason why we do it is because we know that this is what it takes to create systemic change. We have to be able to work with each other across cities, across boundaries, across, little disagreements here and there in order to win on a bigger scale. And this is what we're here to do. We're here to transform the Democratic Party. And we hope that you'll support us in that effort. Thank you.
Yeah, so the ballots drop tomorrow. So please right away vote for all of us before you forget. And before the meeting's up, we'll put an entire list in the chat so you'll see by district who the people are. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And we're going to move on now. Our first scheduled speaker, Alex Lee, has arrived. Cheri, do you want to introduce Alex?
I'm delighted to introduce Alex. I first ran into Assemblymember Alex Lee at a rally in Sacramento for single-payer healthcare. At that time, if you remember, it was AB 562. We still don't have universal healthcare in California, even though we have a super majority. But our revolution, along with the people you've been listening to, are endorsing candidates that not only talk about these issues, but also walk the walk, propose, and fight for the legislation. Alex has done just that. In 2020, he was Assemblymember Lee was elected as the youngest Asian American legislator in the country. He has gone on to earn Legislature of the Year in 2022, and in 2023 was elected to the chair of the Legislative Progressive Caucus, following in the footsteps of Ash Kalra. He's championed banning corporate contributions to politics, especially getting foreign money out of our elections, which is very near and dear to the heart of our revolution East Bay. He introduced AB 20 in 2020, AB 1819 in 2022, and in this session, AB 83. Unfortunately, all of them have not passed in our supermajority California legislature. So thanks so much, Alex, for being here today. And how in the heck do we get this vital legislation passed and the other things that you're working on through this California legislature? Alex?
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the wonderful introduction, Cheri. You've basically given my entire update already, so you already saved me the trouble. But you know, it is a frustrating fact. The reality is, in California, we have Democratic more than supermajorities in both houses of legislature, all the executive offices, but taking on one of the most fundamental issues that is corrosive to democracy, which is big money, corporate money in politics, is very, very challenging, to say the least. So as Cheri talked about, I have been working on different bills to get foreign money, to get corporate money and foreign money out of our politics altogether. And the last effort, AB 83, which I want to thank a lot of people I know who were involved in, calling a lot of the East Bay Assembly members to actually be supportive of the effort. Well, we fell short a bit. So long story short, every law that basically touches our political system, especially when it comes to contributions, needs 2/3 votes, 54. It needs the supermajority. Even though we have 62 Democrats, I still could not get all the way up to 54, though we are much closer than we were before. The last bill that we just championed, Cheri talked about, was AB 83 of this session. That bill would have prohibited what's called foreign influence corporations from spending in our elections, meaning those corporations would not be able to spend on independent expenditures, give to candidates, do PACs, whatever, totally knocked out. In fact, the city of San Jose, where I live, just passed that measure and is in effect as this cycle. The state of Seattle has had it since 2019, and the state of, Minnesota has had this on the books for about a year or so now. Though, of course, it is being now, this is the first time it's being challenged in court. But we still think it will actually be a sound, hopefully a positive court ruling in our favor. Because for a long time, even from the conservative court judges' kind of perspective, they said that Citizens United was okay in law of the land because corporations were associations of citizens. But what happens when in reality you pull the curtain back and your associations aren't just citizens, they're Saudi princes, Russian oligarchs, or Chinese billionaires, or London hedge firms. They're not actually just, Uncle Joe and your cousin who's just a big venture capitalist. They're actually multinational firms. And this is increasingly a problem because basically 40% of all publicly traded shares on our stock market are owned by foreign investors. And that's because of the globalization of our economy, one way or another, right? As we've seen with the war in Ukraine, we were very effective at freezing the Western assets of Russian oligarchs, right? Because they often like to park their assets and accrue more through our capitalist system over here. And that's also leading to a lot of a backdoor in which a lot of foreign money bleeds into our elections. For instance, some of the biggest investors in Twitter and in Uber and Lyft are actually various Arabian princes and their sovereign wealth funds as well. And that way, a lot of the money that is literally propping up these companies and being spent on elections is in effect also touching the money that's coming from the investors. Something obviously alarming for us and something of note is that Uber just this month last month, January now, they dropped $30 million in their own PAC. $30 million. They have never done something as gargantuan in political spending on their own before. Of course, big tech will conglomerate and form a PAC on their own, but they've never, since you've seen one company, which is already struggling supposedly on its own, to put so much money into one. And Uber itself already has a strong, significant shareholding from Arabian princes. And so if we had passed AB 83, which I'm still going to try to work on efforts, we're going to think creatively as we go on, it would have banned them from spending. Even by the California Chamber of Commerce, their own admission, if the AB 83 were to pass, it would prohibit 98% of the S&P 500 publicly traded corporations from spending elections. So every single corporation that you probably have a name ID from household name will be banned. However, we also know that it's inequitable, right? Our local diner or our local shoe shop probably doesn't really have a lot of foreign investment in it, so much more as big pharma or the tech companies do. They're very skewed in that sense. But that's also why the forces against the bill really at the last minute rallied up and got a lot of people to be scared to not vote for this bill. And, you know, a lot of threats and all that stuff happened. But it would be a really game changer. And the game changer in the sense that it would even the odds in our electoral playing field, where there are candidates who are actually doing the hard work of grassroots politics, leaning on their neighbors to do the right thing. They aren't going to just be outgunned immensely just by someone who gets a bunch of corporate money. And so these are two real phenomenons that we're trying to push on still. And just to be clear, you know, if anyone ever asks, right, this is not a xenophobic thing. This is not saying we don't want people from out of the country to invest in our country or to migrate here. There's a very tangible difference between that and, I would say, the sovereignty of our elections. It is the one place where I think most Americans would say, I feel like Americans should be the one calling the shots in American elections, or else the self-sovereignty argument in democracy goes out the window. So that's something we've been really working on, trying to change the landscape of electoral politics. But, you know, in some ways, I'm very heartened that other states like Minnesota and Maine and other places are stepping up to this, and you're seeing bans, you're seeing electoral reform. At the same time, this year, too, on the ballot, hopefully, we will have the publicly financed elections ballot measure to enable publicly financed elections. So that will also be a huge major step.
Or they'll care about
election reform. So that's my update on electoral reform. I don't know if we're going to do question share or how you want me to do this, but I got a lot of other bills we're working on too.
Oh, could you just briefly kind of tell us some of the other things that you're working on, and then I'm sure we have questions for you too.
Absolutely. So
if your time allows.
Absolutely. So going into my 4th year in the legislature, we haven't announced all these bills yet. So these are my working kind of like headlines of what we're going to do. I'm sure you've seen in the news a lot about Wall Street buying up neighborhoods, single family homes, and profiting off of that. We will also be doing a bill very similar to that to restrict and ban corporations from turning entire neighborhoods into their rental fiefdoms. So that's always going to be a big bill we're doing. We're going to work on a couple new social housing measures as well. The social housing bill, which unfortunately we got all the way to the governor's desk last year and would have been able to produce a lot of housing on government land for public benefit, was vetoed by the governor. But now we're going to try slightly different efforts with some financing tools, and also going to work on a revival of the AB 309 kind of structure of the public developer. We also will be bringing back, which I won't steal the thunder of the main author, but there will be a single-payer CalCare bill again this cycle, which I am already a co-author on. The official announcement, you know, we're all in the know, right? We all probably already know this is coming. The official announcement will come in the next weeks or so, but that's gearing up for its next effort. And hopefully we will get a strong result on the floor. I feel better about this composition of legislators, frankly. And what else? What else should I talk about? We have a lot of housing things we're working on. And then, of course, this year also, I assumed the role of chair of our Legislative Progressive Caucus as well. And so I'm really trying to hone in our discipline of progressive values and really make sure we maintain a lot of our wins, especially in light of the severe budget crisis we have. Now, there are a lot of austerity-minded conservative politicians who want to cut every single program that exists that has really helped us recover from the pandemic and get us farther along. I'm going to be pushing really hard to make sure we don't do that. And I'm also one of the few voices right now saying that we should tax the billionaires. Early this year, we really unveiled our billionaire tax, which is the wealth tax. I'm also doing a lot of other things behind the scenes. I'm trying to push a restoration of our corporate tax rate and ending tax breaks for the rich and powerful corporations as well. Because really, this is the time to analyze who's that we give tax breaks to and who's not paying their share. And especially in time of budget deficit, I don't want to see teachers get laid off. I don't want to see people on under social safety net lose their services, when in fact there are billionaires and mega millionaires who do not pay effectively anything. In fact, it's so horrible that yeah, it's a very, very horrible situation in which we still have a lot of Democrats to change their mind, but I think this is a vital opportunity to do so. So that's a lot of the stuff I've been working on. The first 2 months, it was the billionaire tax. Then we had, what was it, AB 83 just now. So we've been trying a lot of different efforts. But even if the legislative vehicle itself, the bills don't progress, they stall, the ideas live on. Because we as progressives, we're fighting a war of ideas. Not just one bill at a time or one candidate at a time, but it's about these ideas that percolate and grow. Right. So just as the single payer movement has ups and downs, the idea has stayed well and alive and continues to grow over and over. So we have a lot of effort and a lot of work to do in the next couple months, and you're going to see a lot more of the bills being announced in February and March. You'll see a lot more of those.
Okay, thank you. We have Gordon and then Susana and then Paola have questions if you have time.
Okay. I would like to say that that's all we'll have time for is those.
Okay.
Okay. Gordon?
I'm going to quickly add that I was one of the people heavily involved in trying to persuade, I'm going to drop names, Steve Glazer, no, I'm sorry, Rebecca Bauer-Kayan, and the gentleman who's going to be replaced by crypto Republican Steve Glazer. And he's running for Senate. And the one way, there's nobody, although I'd love to see a primary challenger for Rebecca Bauer-Kayan, nobody seems to be showing up, although I'll gladly work for her. However, to stop the other gentleman, there's somebody named Marisol Rubio who's running against him in the primary. And if you're from this neck of the woods, Contra Costa County, you can vote for Marisol Rubio. And in the local Democratic Central Committee races, you can vote for somebody named Alex Rubio Talavera and help bring this big money dominion to an end. And now on to a question. Is there any thought about doing something about curbing the destructive, always destructive influences of private equity capital in the state of California?
Well, I will be doing the bill to prevent corporations and real estate investment vehicles from buying up single family homes. That's going to be one of them. But I think in general, challenging the corporate interests or even, big capital is always going to be difficult. I think many Democrats still sympathize with that view of the economics. I'm trying to be very diplomatic how I say things, but they're very sympathetic to that view of it, and I think we should continue to challenge it. I think in recent years there has been a lot more efforts to even the pile. Let's say our labor movement has gotten much stronger. We're taking a lot of efforts to make sure that even the basic necessities of compensation and workplace safety for healthcare workers, fast food workers has really come to the forefront, even while big capital has been opposing to all of those things. So I think in general, we've been working towards it, not enough in my own opinion, but I think we're getting better and better.
Okay.
But thank you, Gordon. I do want to thank you for your efforts on trying to persuade your local legislators. I know everyone in this contingent, I've heard from those efforts tried very, very hard, and I really do appreciate it.
The gentleman's name I was fishing for is Tim Grayston. Need to get him out. Healed.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. Susana?
Thanks, Cheri. Okay, so Alex, I have like a random question.
Okay.
And you think I could Google this and get like an answer? So going back to the campaign financing reform. So in like, just take the EU, for example, are United States, like corporations, people, whatever, allowed to interfere with elections in the EU like we're letting them do in the United States with allowing this foreign money in?
I mean, I would assume not.
It doesn't seem like from what I found, but man, I had to read through really quickly through a lot of stuff. It's not all that easy to find out. Yeah, I was just curious if the flip-flop, if we're basically standing here as Yet another bonehead thing that we're doing as a country by allowing this outside interference, which is shaping our political process and frankly all of our lives in a very negative way right now.
Absolutely.
So I was just curious if we were once again unique, and I'm not using that in the good term of unique. In, you know, kind of like our healthcare for all not happening here and the rest of the world has it. Kind of scenario. Okay, all right. I was just curious because it doesn't seem like it is, but I figured you would like know that. So
Well, something, you know, in that line of thinking too, something I've tried to argue with the Republicans on is, you know, if you believe in American exceptionalism, I'm saying if you believe in American exceptionalism and that we have the right to go interfere with everyone else's elections, shouldn't you think, hey, we're Americans, you can't interfere with our election? That's my argument with some of the more conservative-minded people. Almost got them.
exactly.
But,
Yeah, I mean, European elections seem to be publicly funded for the most part, and not even a lot of their money from what I'm reading, and it seems to be a somewhat official document. Yeah, that they're not coming even from private sources within their own countries. And some of the countries actually have very strong regulations about it. So yeah, we got to make this happen. I don't know how, but we got to make this happen. So thanks, Alex.
of course.
Okay, Paola, did you have a question for
Yes, I do. Hey, Alex, thank you for being here. I do have a question regarding state workers. The governor is thinking about having all state workers come back into the office. Some of them 2 times a week, some of them full time again. You know, one of the things that the state did save a lot of money on not having all those offices filled. As a state employee or formerly state employee, I saved a lot of money by not having to go into the office on transit, not spending money on. So what is your take on this on this effort to send workers back into the office? You know, it's not environmentally sound because it's more cars on the roads. And, you know, state employees are not the highest paid government workers.
Right.
We're the lowest paid government workers. So how would you, what is your stance on that? Thanks.
Yeah, I would say I had not heard of that decision by the or proposal by the administration right now, though I would be alarmed by it. For instance, because you did talk about the savings aspect of it. Obviously, in the budget crunch, we're trying to look at all the savings, and a lot of big plan that we and the governor put on was that save on the office expenditure aspect of it. In some ways, too, because we were able to save on the office expense, we also were able to turn some state buildings into hopeful new developments for affordable housing, too. So we've been able to transform that and look at our space efficiency. I mean, it'd also be contradicting, kind of, in my view, how the governor recently said that he was getting a lot of rid of a lot of barriers to Cal HR so that we could get more people to apply for the state civil service. So I'll definitely let me look more into that one. I have not heard of this until then, but definitely would raise some concern for me.
Oh yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Thank you.
Of course, thank you for letting me know.
Thank you, Alex. Carol, can we take just a quick question from Alfred too?
Keep it short, Alfred.
Sure. Any exciting housing legislation coming up this year?
Well, a lot of exciting housing legislation, but I would say we're going to bring back social housing, the public developer. It's going to come back again. We're going to try to overcome the veto. I will be trying to do a revolving loan fund related to social housing. I will also be trying to push social housing into the housing bond. That's a big conversation in legislature right now. As a group effort, I would say, is we're trying to do a bond to build affordable housing across California, put a couple billion in there. My big emphasis is saying, let's look at using public properties first. You know, there's a lot of land that school districts, cities, counties, the state owns, in which we have a lot of jurisdiction on, and we could build on our own terms with the right partners and nonprofits before just, again, infusing a lot of money to the private sector. And frankly, that would give us more accountability, quicker return on stuff. So the housing bond's a big conversation I'm trying to be engaged into. Slight sneak preview too is we are also working on the intersection of Indigenous rights and also housing as well. So trying to give basically bonuses for Indigenous tribes that want to engage in housing for the people. So that's something we're working on still right now. And then, of course, trying to ban investors from buying up single-family homes for the purpose of rental based on the kind of Minnesota model. So there would be a lot of interesting housing bills we're going to be working on. So more work to come. And then to plug in the budget world, because I'm still on the budget committee, as well as the Human Services Chair. I'm going to really be fighting to make sure that we preserve a lot of the money that is traditionally used for construction of affordable housing. Like a lot of the money that our nonprofits use to build affordable housing was like completely decimated in the governor's proposal. And yet he kept his like $300 million, what's called the homeless and clearance, homeless, I want to call it homeless clearing, no, homeless encampment resolution program. Basically was a fancy program which cities use to push people off and then install like barriers and stuff like that. It has a very low success rate. So I'm pushing hard to like say, hey, if we're gonna have to choose priorities here, let's put the money in like the multifamily housing program, the veterans homelessness program, instead of things like building rocks so that people can't camp there anymore, you know. Insane. So a lot of work to be done on the budget, a lot of work to be on the legislation, and I really appreciate giving me a little bit of time today on your packed agenda.
Alex, thank you so much for being here. And we are a very active organization, so keep us informed on what you would like us to sort of help with, phone calls and letters and things to get some of this legislation passed, because we really, it does seem to be moving our way, but just kind of slowly. So thank you so much for the update.
Okay, Alex, thank you
all
so much for being here. We always love to have you here and get updated on what you're doing, and we really appreciate what you're doing too.
I appreciate all the organizing you're doing. Thank you so much.
Okay, we are going to move on now. Our next speaker is George Syrop from Hayward on the city council, and I believe he's going to be introduced by Wakean.
I don't think I'm on the, am I on?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, George is city council. I'm not familiar with him or friendly, but you know, he's introduced the resolution to boycott, divest, which passed the city council. So that's amazing. Boycott, divest from corporations doing business with Israel. It's an anti-apartheid measure. So I'm gonna let George take it away, because I don't have that much personal insight, and I got COVID too. So all of you guys be careful with COVID. It finally caught up with me.
Oh, thanks, Wakean, and I'm sorry to hear that you're under the weather. I hope you feel better soon. Hi, our Revolution crowd. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. Thanks for inviting me to come and share a little bit about what Hayward's been up to over the last few weeks. And thanks for helping me get in this position in the first place. OREB was one of my first endorsing organizations, if not the first, and that really helped create the snowball that I think led to my election in November of 2022, where I became the youngest ever elected on the city council in Hayward, and also the only Asian American representative on the Hayward City Council as well. But most importantly, the only renter. So that's really kind of the main thrust of what I'm trying to focus on in my city. But today I'm here to share a little bit about the divestment action that the city of Hayward took. I think we are the first city in the United States since the October 7th crisis, if not, for the past few years, to put forward an intentional divestment in 4 corporations that are doing business with Israel in light of the ongoing genocide that we're seeing. And, the motivation behind this is that, we're seeing calls for a ceasefire, and we're seeing those calls be ignored. And we've seen the divestment movement against apartheid South Africa be incredibly effective at bringing folks to the table to actually create the conditions for an effective negotiation. I want to be really clear, because this is a very charged issue, that folks have very different opinions about what the appropriate outcome for that region should be. What I feel resolute in is that this is an appropriate first step to begin those conversations to establish peace, so we can begin looking at what potential outcomes might look like. But we're not going to get anywhere towards that while a region the size of the East Bay is being bombed into oblivion. So last Tuesday, 4 companies, Chevron, Intel, Hyundai, and Caterpillar, making a total of $1.6 million of our investment portfolio out of the $250 million we currently have invested, were removed from our portfolio, and that $1.6 million will be reallocated. This was not by any means a solo endeavor. This was a result of really impactful community organizing. So I'm wearing my beanie here. This is the logo for the Hayward Community Coalition. We're a grassroots group that formed in 2020 during the wake of the George Floyd protests to push the city to create some public safety reforms. We fought against school closures. I would say our base is the reason why I was able to get elected into office. And we're really intent on building people power. And we were the folks that organized the action to call for a ceasefire in December and then call for divestment on January 23rd, just this past week. So, I do want to say that the way it played out is the city has to revisit its investment policy on a fairly regular basis, very city by city. But folks are able to request their city's investment reports, see what companies their cities are invested in, and compare those companies to the BDS list to see if we're doing any business with folks that are supporting a genocide. And I just want to say that the ask of 1.6 million isn't a lot. It's a drop in the bucket, but it's really about who's next. Our gesture alone isn't going to stop what's happening right now. It's really incumbent upon every agency across the country, city governments, state governments, universities, and other institutions, taking a look at what their money is going towards and making a material impact. Because while I support a ceasefire and the idea of a ceasefire, it is still a very idealistic position because it doesn't actually result in any material change. It's asking for some kind of change. But when you move money, you don't have to worry about the language. Oh, do you condemn this person? Or, oh, do you condemn that person? Instead, are the dollars in the account or not? And we can talk about putting those dollars back as soon as we have some peace. But you don't have to get caught up in the snare or the trap of the language battles that we're seeing happen with every single ceasefire resolution. And this has a direct material impact, and it scares the crap out of systems of power. I mean, I can't tell you how much pushback I've gotten since. A lot of support too, a lot of words of encouragement. But some of the framing has been incredibly negative as different media outlets try to put me into a corner. And then I just want to say for the record, I condemn all forms of anti-Semitism and all forms of Islamophobia. This is not about that. I do not equate Judaism and Zionism. And I think the last thing I want to say before I open it up to questions, sorry, I'm kind of giving a broad crash course here, is that these issues are local. When we have politicians that talk about being against militarism and imperialism and the war machine, this is a direct example of what that looks like. I think I just saw something like there's a multi-billion-dollar package, like 14 billion, that's going to be considered by Congress sometime, next week. We could solve world hunger with 6 billion. Where are we spent? Where is this 14 billion coming from, right? And every politician that says, oh, I'm against all wars. This is a perfect example of the U.S. overextending itself yet again. And the argument that I made on the dais is, why do we even invest money in fighting climate change if Israel's going to drop bombs that create more CO2 than 20 countries combined in 100 days? Like, it's fiscally irresponsible for me to even try to fight climate change if, as a city, we're just going to ignore and not take a stance on what's happening over there or what's happening with our military industrial complex. So I believe that, we want to fight climate change, but curtailing our militarism is part of that. And if folks want me to feel comfortable fighting for climate change in my city, we also have to speak on the ways in which our federal government is undermining not just climate change, but every other project that we're trying to fund for our cities. I mean, half of our labor and our tax dollars is being absorbed and drained by the military. And when I had a publication frame what I'm about to say negatively. I said they're stealing from us. The publication said, "What do you mean by they?" I'm talking about our federal government. This does impact us, and they are stealing from us. And I think this is a specific issue, especially because the international court has said, hey, this is looking pretty much like a genocide, for us to put our foot down and say enough. Like, this is a perfect example of why we need to stop doing what we're doing around our military spending and our, carte blanche approval of anything that the state of Israel is doing. So I'll stop there. I'm eager to hear your questions, and I'm happy to go into more detail around some of the specifics of, it wasn't necessarily a resolution, it was the adoption of our investment policy with the amendment that we divest from 4 specific companies.
Okay, right now we have one hand up, and we may only have time for one more question, because
Yeah.
we need to have some.
Oh, sorry.
Could you wait till I finish speaking, Matthew?
Yes, so sorry. I did not mean to interrupt. It was an accident.
Now I lost my train of thought. We have to by 5:02 complete this conversation because somebody has to leave at 5 o'clock, has to speak then. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, so sorry about the was an accident interrupting. Before I get to my question, 2 things, which are, I think you're right, George. I don't think any other local government in the entire country has ever divested from Israel, to my knowledge, even though the reporting was saying like this is the first thing needs to be. I think it's so. thank you so much. And also just want to say, as a Jew, I hate that you have to like preface you have to add that you are against anti-Semitism. Like, it's important to be against anti-Semitism, but like, it's so unfair that like Palestinians and their supporters have to put that in there because of this intentional conflating by the Zionists of Israel and Judaism. So yeah, but I was wondering, you mentioned the Hayward, the Hayward Community Coalition. I was just wondering if you could speak a bit about because I have no idea. What does its structure look like? Like, is it like a coalition of organizations or something? Just because like people look at like Richmond Progressive Alliance as a model, and I know in Berkeley folks are trying to build them up. So I'd be really curious to know what is HAYCOCO? How does it work?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So we are a coalition of, I would say, different community leaders. Some of us are teachers, some of us are workers. I'm in elected office. It's primarily membership based. It was inspired by the Richmond Progressive Alliance, actually. And the motivation was that there's not really a political or progressive wing in the city of Hayward, a city that often gets overlooked. So we figured we may as well create one. But we're really disciplined about our organizing practices. And this is something I was hoping to share. So I appreciate this question. This wasn't just about self-selected activists showing up and yelling at the council. This was about identifying leaders in our community, looking at schools, looking at churches, and bringing folks out that could also bring out other folks to speak on this issue. So it's not just activists that can be dismissed as radicals, but it's actually, oh, I went to school with that person. Oh, that person's a teacher that everybody loves and knows. The pressure comes from the relationships and that interconnected web of relationships. So it's not just radicals, but it's, wow, this is actually the community that cares about this. That makes it so much harder for the establishment and those empowered to dismiss when they're looking at people they actually taught that were students when they were teachers, or people that they actually grew up being taught by, or that they're in classes with, or appointed to be commissioners. So we are to answer your question, we are a tight-knit group of organizers from within the community, but we're really effective at leveraging our networks, identifying leaders, and bringing folks in to build that base and mobilize that base. So that's how we're approaching it. We try to avoid being a coalition of organizations because organizations are just people at the end of the day. So we want to remove that layer of abstraction and really just connect directly with people and get those folks to commit to showing up for actions rather than just putting our brands on a letter and sending it in, because that can just get thrown into a recycle bin. You can't throw 100 people in the council chambers into the recycle bin. One sticks a lot more than the other.
Okay, we have a question now from Paola.
No, I don't have a question. I just want to congratulate you for your audacity for doing that. Fortunately, I'm in the city of Berkeley, and none of our city council members have any audacity. They're all basically bought and sold. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. This was truly a community effort. It was a 4-3 split vote. We weren't sure we even had the votes going into it. And when it came time, the crowd was silent and somebody in the crowd yelled, "Be brave." And one council member swung the vote in the beginning, and the whole crowd went crazy. And just to be able to feel what it meant to be on the right side of history, I think the community in Hayward's really proud. And the last thing that I want to add is that Hayward did divest from apartheid South Africa in 1985. And so this to me is a continuation of our legacy. For all the folks that said, they had never heard of it, I've received a lot of pushback from some of my colleagues or for some of my staff, but the community demanded this on December 5th. There was 45 days of time, including a winter recess. If folks were really committed to getting this done, they could have gotten this done. And so if anybody pushes back the narrative that this was irresponsible, we didn't have enough time to look at it, I just want to say for the record, that's not true. They just weren't interested in looking at it.
Thank you. Berkeley was the first city to divest from apartheid in the United States. We have fallen so lowly, but we have a double standard in Berkeley when it comes to international human rights. Anybody but the Palestinians get our support. Thank you.
Yeah, and just on that note, Kate, I just want to send my heartfelt love for you and what you've had to deal with over the past few weeks. I was hard to see you step back.
Oh, okay, we have time for one more question. JP?
It's not a question. It's also a big kudos to the Hayward City Council and George for you leading this effort. I think this is a true look at how we can look at other directions and other ways to try to make an impact. And I think that, this was, this is what all of Alameda County should be doing, but unfortunately is not. So again, sincere thank you.
Thank you, JP. And before I close out here, and thank you for the time, again, the ask is who's next, right? Like, I don't want Hayward to just be the lone example as much as it makes me feel proud. This is about other folks joining in, seeing what's possible and beginning to move their dollars and having that material impact. So begin pushing folks, right? If they've already passed a ceasefire, ask them what's next. Are we going to go the full mile? Are we going to divest? If someone's struggling with a ceasefire, say, hey, maybe pivot to divestment. You don't have to worry about language that way. But it's up to us to get the word out, because this 1.6 million is a drop in the bucket. We've got an ocean to move, okay? That's all. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much for coming. And really, congratulations for standing up and getting this to happen. And I hope a lot of places follow suit and do the same thing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, folks, we're going to move on a little bit. One of the things we're going to be talking about today is some of the measures, and Alfred too is going to speak about measures A and B.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So this year on the primary, there are 2 countywide ballot measures in Alameda County, measures A and B. And I'm here to urge you all to vote yes on both of them. So measure A is very straightforward. It updates our county civil service exam process so that we can hire people faster, because as you probably all know, all of our local governments are short-staffed. So right now, Alameda County requires 25 days of notice for hiring somebody and having a civil service exam. Now, this made sense back in the day before the internet, when things had to get mailed to a newspaper and then displayed in a newspaper ad. It doesn't make sense anymore. And all the other counties around us have reduced their notice time to 5 to 14 days. And so right now, what's happening is people who are applying for jobs, they hear back from our neighbors first and they take a job somewhere else. So all Measure A would do is it would shorten Alameda County's timeline from 25 days to 14 days, bringing us in line with the rest of the Bay. So vote yes. The second countywide measure is Measure B, which is also a modernization of county processes, but this one is about recall elections. So currently, Alameda County recall election processes date back to 1926. So they're 98 years old. They date back to a time when our county had much fewer people living in it, back to a time before vote by mail. And it has a lot of provisions that are unfeasible, unconstitutional, or unclear. For example, one of them requires the election to be held as early as 35 days after signatures get verified. Now, because vote by mail requires ballots to be mailed out about a month before the election, that would really leave only about 5 days for printing and mailing the ballots, which is just not possible with 900,000 voters in our county. The old current provisions also have it so people who are running to replace a person being recalled run on the same ballot, similar to the really chaotic election when the Republicans were trying to recall Governor Newsom a couple of years ago. Now, if Measure B passes, we will use the new state laws, which say that you have about 3 to 6 months after verification to hold the election, so there's enough time for campaigns, for ballots to be printed, for the voter guide to be sent out to people. And it also says that instead of having replacement candidates run on the same ballot, you would have a vacancy that's filled by appointment until the next general election. Much more orderly process. And for those who know that there's this current recall election going on, you may be wondering, how does it get affected by Measure B? And that basically comes down to when they turn in their signatures. If they turn in their signatures before the primary, they're still under the old rules. But if they turn in their signatures after the primary and Measure B passes, they would be under the new rules. So for that reason, the Alameda County Democratic Party supports both protect the win, oppose the Pamela Price recall, as well as Measure B to update our recall processes so that they're not as chaotic as they could otherwise be. So vote yes on B. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, JP, your hand is still up. Did you have something else you wanted to say, or you just forgot to take it down?
I forgot to take it down.
Okay, all right. Does anybody want to comment or ask a question of Alfred on these two measures? Okay, we're going to move on then. Alfred, thank you so much as always for coming and supporting our.
All right, thank you. I've also made a website with info on both that you can share, and I'll drop it in the chat.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so shortly we're going to interview two candidates. But before then, I want to mention that we have just gotten into Black History Month. And Susana is going to speak just briefly about it and how OREB supports candidates, Black women in particular.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, yeah, so kind of in recognition of Black History Month, we kind of took a look at all of our amazing endorsed candidates. So we have Barbara Lee, Javanka Beckles, Latifah Simons, Jennifer Esteen, Monica Wilson, Chanel Skills Preston, and Jackie Elward. And they are all African-American women who are going to go down and make history of their own. Some of them already have. Barbara Lee certainly has, with her years of public service and her stance on no more wars, and her coming out first and foremost with the ask for a ceasefire in Palestine. But yeah, we want to salute them. Everybody vote for them, work for them, donate to them, do whatever you can to help them make history again. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I know there's many other women in this area that we support and ones we don't support that are absolutely making history. Okay, we're going to move on to the candidates now. We have two candidates who are running for the same office. Rigel Robinson, former council person of Berkeley, just left the council, which is why he's former. And the city has like so many days to have an election and put new people in. And we have two people. We have Cecilia Lunaparra and James Chang. And let's see, who was going to introduce Cecilia?
Gordon Miller. I guess.
Gordon. Okay, Gordon, you want to introduce her and we'll have her go first.
Okay, this is Cecilia Lunaparra, and she's chair of the Environmental and Climate Commission in Berkeley, president of Cal Berkeley Democrats, and she's a senior at University of California, Berkeley, which is interesting. A 76-year-old geezer introducing a basically 21-year-old youth or young adult. She's running to represent students and their issues in the city of Berkeley. And I guess I can start with a question about what she feels are the major issues facing Berkeley at this time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, I'm Cecilia. I am the former president of the Cal Berkeley Democrats. And I'm so excited to be running for this seat, which is a student supermajority district. It's about 95% students, and I believe that it needs to be represented by someone who is directly connected to the community. In terms of the biggest issues that the city of Berkeley faces, I want to emphasize housing is number one. We are seeing unhoused people on our streets being criminalized simply for existing. We do not have enough housing for everybody who wants to live here. We do not have enough affordable housing for everybody who wants to live here. And we do not have enough tenant protections for the renters who are at greatest risk of displacement. So that is the number one issue that I want to try to tackle. I want to work with the elected rent board to pass the Tenant Right to Organize Ordinance and the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, as well as work to dismantle exclusionary zoning practices and build more affordable housing in the student district and beyond. Additionally, I think that another really big issue in the city of Berkeley is the over-policing of marginalized communities and low-income communities. I really want to work to put in city funds into programs like Berkeley Specialized Care Unit and the Berkeley Department of Transportation, which address the root of public safety of some of these issues without over-policing at-risk communities. And I'm very passionate about this. I think that public safety encompasses a much wider range of issues than it is often discussed to be. I think that transportation justice, mobility justice is included in public safety. I think that increased public transportation, equitable street design, and pedestrian safety and bicyclist safety are also forms of public safety that will address some of the biggest issues in our city. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Raise your hand.
Yeah, I would actually like to hear, usually we don't start the questions till after the candidate has spoken. So I'd like you to address anything that you want to regarding your experience and etc.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll introduce myself a little more. I'm Cecilia Lunaparra. I am a UC Berkeley senior. I'm about to graduate and I have really strong ties to my community in District 7. I feel very strongly that District 7 deserves a representative that is strongly connected to their community. It is, like I said, 95% students. The median age of the district is 19 years old. And I am so proud to have the support of some of our students, specifically our most progressive students and student organizations, including Cal YDSA, Young Democratic Socialists of America, the Cal Berkeley Democrats, and Telegraph for People, as well as the Cal Berkeley Democrats President Avery Arbaugh, and the student government executive team. Additionally, I'm super proud to have endorsements outside of the city to outside of the district to build this kind of progressive coalition that we're fighting for. This includes State Senate candidate Javanka Beckles, who spoke at our introduction rally yesterday, and Councilmember Kate Harrison, who's also running for Berkeley mayor, as well as the East Bay Democratic Socialists of America and Berkeley Planning Commissioner Alfred Twu, as well as oh, sorry, I just saw the text. And the Berkeley Tenants Union as well. I have been a student organizer for my time at UC Berkeley. And sorry. Okay. I've been a student organizer as my time at UC Berkeley and have so many ties to progressive groups across the city, and just feels really strongly that that voice of progressivism, specifically of youth progressivism, is not being accurately represented, has not been accurately represented, and I would be so proud to have your endorsement and be able to do that for my district. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. We have one hand up. If other people here want to ask questions, they should get their hand up. Nagin.
Hi, Cecilia. How you doing? I wanted to ask you about ceasefire and Gaza. tell me where you stand on this and expand on your activities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am a strong supporter of not only of ceasefire, but also of Berkeley passing a ceasefire resolution. It is unfortunate that Berkeley hasn't, and it is honestly astounding considering everything, all of the other times that the city has vocally expressed solidarity with oppressed people across the world. But it is really unfortunate that that hasn't been also expressed to Palestinian people. I have participated in BDS and boycott, divest, sanctions as an individual for years and have been a vocal advocate for Palestinian rights and liberation. I really strongly believe that solidarity with oppressed people should be international. And if I am to be elected on the Berkeley City Council, I will very proudly continue to do so. In June of 2021, I co-authored the Cal Berkeley Democrats statement in support of Palestinian liberation and BDS, and opposing the federal government's political legitimization and financial support for Israel's continuous human rights violations and dehumanization of Palestinians. And I advocated for a ceasefire resolution at the Berkeley City Council and joined many other young activists in regularly pressuring the City Council to oppose violence against the Palestinian people. At the California Democratic Convention this past fall, where I am a party delegate, I have participated in demonstrations with Jewish Voice for Peace and Palestinian delegates to urge party leadership to call for a ceasefire. I'm also incredibly impressed with the work that Hayward has done with Councilmember George Syrop, and I would be so happy to also introduce a similar legislation.
All right, Ilana.
Hi, Cecilia. Thank you so much. Yes, let's divest. Berkeley, ceasefire. Yes. Question about People's Park. As we know, what's happened there. What is your feeling about what went down there on January 4th? And how do you feel about it now? What's your vision? Where do you stand? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions because my introduction to organizing in Berkeley was at People's Park. I started college during 2020, and it was the middle of the pandemic, and I was so lonely. I didn't know anybody in Berkeley when I moved here, and when People's Park community members were having events such as cookouts and movie nights, I had the privilege of joining them and of finding community there in a way that most people in the city don't get the privilege to do. Ago, I was there. Oh my God, it's February 4th. That's crazy. On January 4th, in the morning, I was there recording the police brutality that occurred at People's Park and in the Southside community. I worked with Councilmember Kate Harrison to draft a resolution attempting to affirm the city of Berkeley's ban on tear gas and less lethal munitions, LRAD devices, and other crowd-controlled tactics that unfortunately did not go to the city council floor. I feel very strongly that this is a community space that should not be built on. As council member, although I wouldn't really be able to regulate what happens in that space, I would fight for accountability for the UC and for BPD for what occurred that morning. I also strongly believe that the UC should be building housing on all of their other sites. I know so many people who have such a special connection to this land, and also in a city or a community with 14,000 people living there, there should be probably at least one park. I have many feelings about People's Park and could go on for hours, but that's kind of a short synopsis of it. Thank you.
Great. Would somebody else like to comment or ask a question? Okay. Do you want to say anything else? Oh, we have a question. Cheri has a question.
Paola has a question.
Okay, Cheri first. Unmute, Cheri.
I muted myself. I'm so delighted to see young people as is yourself, running for office and to be working in office. But running for office is expensive and difficult. Have you figured out how to run the campaign and to get yourself elected?
Thankfully, I have a wonderful campaign team. My campaign manager, Jonah Gottlieb, is on this call as well. We are using, our campaign is using public financing from the city of Berkeley, which means that all of the donations from a city of Berkeley resident are matched 6-to-1 by the city, which is an incredible opportunity. And I'm so grateful for that kind of public help in elections. And I think that should be spread everywhere. That's the only reason that I'm really able to run a campaign that is truly people powered, and especially in such a community that, you know, doesn't have a lot of money to spare. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you.
I've changed my mind. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I've decided not to ask any questions. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very, very much. And I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but I'd also like to mention that Cecilia about a year ago was elected as an ADEM. I may have missed it. You may have mentioned it. But I did want people to know that.
Thank you. Yeah. I would also be the first Latina on Berkeley City Council, and the first undergraduate student and the first openly queer woman of color. Which is astounding considering that there are 9 members of the Berkeley City Council, but I wanted to share that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, we're going to move on to the next candidate. I forgot who was going to introduce James Chang. Who was going to do that?
Carol, it was me.
Oh, okay, Richard.
No worries. Well, first of all, thanks, Cecilia, for being here. You did great. Our next guest, who is also running for this seat, is James Chang. He's going for that Berkeley City Council District 7 seat. James was a former Berkeley Rent Board Commissioner, as those of you in the city will know, from 2014 through 2022. And was first elected in 2014 with the most votes of any candidate in the board's history. I believe that might still stand. I'm not sure. He's also the president of the Berkeley chapter of SEIU 1021, which represents more than a third of Berkeley's city employees. I will say on a personal note, when I first moved back to the Bay Area in 2020 from college, you know, James was actually the first person I met in East Bay organizing. He's helped me an extraordinarily large amount with, you know, getting involved in our local progressive spaces and meeting with activists and campaigns. And so not only do I consider him a personal mentor of mine, but he has an experience. He has a history, speaking on experience, of uplifting people, and especially young people, in getting involved in the East Bay in our political processes and in our local community. So I will shut up and I'll turn it over to James. James, you have the floor.
Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Our Revolution, for inviting me to speak in front of all of you today. It warms my heart to be invited, to even be considered. You are actually the first organization who has bravely invited both candidates to stand in front of you to ask the tough questions for candidates to even have an opportunity to earn your endorsement through an open and democratic process. So with that, I really want to thank all of you for that. I'm running because as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley, UC Berkeley gave me the opportunity to serve, especially in its affordable housing space when I was a student leader at the UC co-ops. And through that experience, I was seen by city leaders, including leaders like Councilmember Chris Worthington, in which they asked me to serve on the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board. And with that, thanks to UC Berkeley and its students and UC Berkeley residents, more specifically, giving me that opportunity, I was able to serve for 2 terms in that role. And I actually originally went back to grad school for my business degree, specifically because I thought I wanted to leave politics for many, many reasons, as some of you who've done this for a long time probably can imagine. But the reality is that when I got to business school, I actually kept being pulled back into public service, whether that's during my time as the graduate student delegate representing all business programs at Haas, or it's my time being my program president when I arrived my first year there. And so with that, with Councilmember Robinson being pushed out, shoved out, and bullied out of office under terrible circumstances, unbeknownst to me, now that this seat did open up, I thought it would be a good time for me to give back to my community one more time to now serve as council member. I am running because the reality is that Berkeley, especially in District 7, the student district, is unaffordable and unsafe. I hope that my experience through my work in housing can allow me to be a leader in that. And also when it comes to addressing public safety, it goes beyond just having more policing, but also talking about more lighting, better street frontage, along with better fixing empty storefronts as well. I look forward to answering your questions. And once again, I'm so grateful that this organization, unlike so many other, has decided to have a process in which I'm able to come in front of you and allow me to really answer your questions. So thank you.
Okay, would anybody like to ask James a question? Okay, Paola.
Thank you. Hi, James.
Hi.
I was honored to serve with you on the rep board for the 2 terms. We were always on the slate together. And I do appreciate you throwing your hand in this ring. You know, it is hard to run for office. What you do have, though, is a track record, because on the rep board, you know, we know what kind of votes you took. So in 2021, so I'm going to ask you about some of the votes that you took or didn't take. So, and I hope you would explain this to us. So in 2021, we were the first elected board to have a resolution that called for, you know, and I don't remember the name, I didn't look it up, but I do remember this. We were calling against the eviction of Palestinian people from their land. We were the first ones to do it, and unfortunately, you didn't vote on that, or you abstained from that. So I'm kind of curious. I've got 2 things. I'm kind of curious about that decision to decide not to vote on that. I'm sure you remember that vote. Also, there was another vote that was taken in 2020 when we were trying to send to the city council an effort to put on the ballot to remove the exemption of golden duplexes to remove the exemption from the rent stabilization and good cause for eviction ordinance. You voted no against it. So can you share your thoughts on why you did that? And thank you for willing to be here, because, you know, these are this is a hard issue. Thanks.
No worries. They're no harder than what the questions that any college student at UC Berkeley would ask. And these are all very important questions. If I can't answer these questions here today, I'm not sure should I be running in a district representing UC Berkeley students, right? So the first thing in regards to the issue regarding the eviction situation in Israel and Palestine, to be quite transparent, I personally do not think, well, I mean, let's just talk about ceasefire for a moment, because I'm assuming this is what it's really about. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. I personally support a ceasefire in the sense that, like, I support our Congresswoman Barbara Lee and her efforts on a national stage. I support her for U.S. Congress. That is why I've raised thousands of dollars for her. And however, I don't believe locally, and that's why I didn't vote for that legislation, and I still would vote no on this resolution, because I don't believe locally, you know, it would be appropriate for us to be taking votes that would deeply divide our community. I'll just be very frank. I mean, I understand that folks want a resolution passed that council. I get that. But right now, I mean, I don't think we would be happy if we passed Councilmember Taplin's resolution, right? The one that he put out. And I wouldn't want to put any of our community members in harm's way by passing either kind of resolutions. that's being put out there. And so I just think these are things that I would balance in regards to how I would approach the situation. And in regards to the golden duplex, I mean, I've said many times, you know, I think this is something that is deeply dividing people that otherwise we can bring along in regards to standing side by side in regards to folks, I guess, who are not wealthy, right? I mean, I feel like, yes, we have wealthy golden duplex owners, but those are not folks that are beholden to corporate powers, or they're not corporate powers to be. And I think we're really misfocusing our attention when we focus on folks who are just trying to own a piece of that American dream, which, whether or not we agree, part of that is land ownership. And we don't have to agree that being the case, but to many people, that is their small entry to what they believe is their vision of the American dream. And in regards to the golden duplex, to be specific, and I mean, I'm still personally very conflicted on the issue in regards to that, but I think overall, I do want to promote more small property owners renting out their property. I do want to be sincere and be of concern of our small property owners' concerns over whether or not they feel safe to enter into this rental market. But overall, I mean, I think there are a lot of things we can stand together on regarding taking on corporate ownership, especially when it comes to properties, especially when it comes to, let's say, BlackRock starting to own actual homes that are re-rented out to families. These are things that we can find commonalities on, and I think we can find a lot of commonalities with folks who otherwise would be opposed to the golden duplex rentals, especially small property owners who, like, quite frankly, if corporations dominate the market, they would not be able to compete. And I think these are just things that I personally just have, you know, a differing opinion than some of you in the room. And I'm happy to be here in this space, sharing that and sharing my perspective, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, James.
Of course.
Okay, let's hear now from Ilana.
Hi, James. Thank you so much, Carol. Question, you know, if you are, with regard to the ceasefire, thank you for answering that question. That was one of my questions. You're saying what many on our council are saying, including Jesse, our mayor, that to bring something to the council that's already divided our city. Our city's already divided on this. It's already in conflict, as you well know. And bringing something will create a space for people to talk, and for us to move past it. So, you know, just a different, because in communities around the area, in Richmond and San Francisco and others, anti-Semitism is not up. You know, there's not, and we're having issues in where people are calling out, you know, some man last Tuesday who was walking around with a kippah was harassed. You know, somebody yelled some derogatory thing at him. I think that's directly related because we're not addressing this issue. So I really, you know, I'm sad to hear you say that, James. What about divestment? What George Syrop said, is that something that you would consider if you were elected to council? So that's one of my questions. I also wonder what you think about the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which San Francisco has had the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act for many years. And this has been, you know, stalled. So wondering how you think about that. Two more. Item 29 on last Tuesday.
Write this down.
Or I could just have you, I could stop and have you answer, James, if that's easier.
Well, I do not support divestment, and on the issue of TOPA, I still have lots of reservations in regards to whether or not it's actually a true pathway to home ownership. If the tenants actually full right own the property and can profit off it and actually hold all of its residual growth from the market, then I would be more open to it. But if it is just a piece of property that's being held over by some organization, I don't know if I would be in support of it.
Okay. And Ben Bartlett, you know, along with he was part of the author of item 29, which was more surveillance cameras in our city. even though we only have one surveillance camera up right now. If you were on the council, if you are elected and this item is going to the budget, is that something that you would, approve $4 million more of surveillance cameras when we don't even know if they're effective at all in addressing the types of crime that's happening here?
Great question. So I would not feel comfortable supporting cameras as is right now. I do think that these are things that are worth visiting. I am not here to say that I would 100% not be in support of putting cameras in areas in which other council members feel is needed for their community. Just like how if I were to put any cameras in District 7, I would definitely consult student leaders, community leaders, longtime residents in regards to whether or not they would want it there. And quite frankly, I would hope my colleagues on council would respect not putting cameras in District 7 if we don't want it, and vice versa. But in regards to cameras in general, I think it needs to be very data-driven approach. I don't think we should be trigger happy in regards to putting cameras everywhere. But at the same time, if there is crime and things are happening, I do think it is one of many options that should be considered. Fortunately and unfortunately, the people, when they have issues, especially when crime has happened, they do want a response and they do want people to be held accountable. And obviously that is this balance that we must strike with civil liberties. I mean, I think that is what makes America, especially when in regards to freedom, special. And that is something that we just have to be careful on. But I cannot tell you that I am against cameras. That would be insincere. But I also cannot tell you that I just am in support of all the cameras. What I will say, one thing that I really do agree with is I agree with Councilmember Sophie Hahn in the fact that, like, if we do put up cameras, I think we do need to have a timeline on reassessing and seeing whether or not we should take them down after a time period and its effectiveness.
Okay, thank you. Ilana?
I have one more question.
We'll come back to you.
Oh, okay.
Depending on time, because we have other people with their hands raised.
Thank you.
Cordell. Unmute.
Yes, can you hear me, Carol?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Oh. Can you hear me, Carol?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I had a question for James.
Okay.
James, you there?
I am here.
Yeah, the only question that I had was if you are elected for city council, how will you address the staffing shortage in the city? That's it.
Well, a couple of things. I think there's two parts to this, right? I think we know that the city manager has a plan in regards to her employer of choice initiative. Not sure if I necessarily agree with that being employers of choice as somebody who works in the city of Berkeley, who represents my union as a leader. But with that, I think some of the best things we can do is actually go back to our union membership and go back to the workers and really ask them how we can attract talent and retain talent in the city of Berkeley. I think right now, the city of Berkeley is actually aggressively staffing in a very fast-paced manner. And quite frankly, for certain roles, faster than I'm comfortable with, including fast-tracking a public works director. It is unusual for a city to hire a public works director within 12 days of posting something online. So these are, I think, in terms of fast-track staffing, I think we've shown that we can definitely do it if there's a will and there's a way. But I think overall what is more important is that there needs to be a deep respect for working people in the city of Berkeley to make sure that they're brought along, especially when it comes to these hiring practices, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to have to work with each other and with those that they sit in the office with for like 8-10 hours.
Okay, thank you, Cordell. Ilana, did you have one more?
I did. I just wanted to, you know, I'm sure, James, thank you for your answers. I'm sure you're aware that, you know, I know there was some harassment of Rigel, which was really unfortunate. And I know that there was also, he was being threatened with a recall. And so that's my understanding, is that, you know, there were enough of the people who he represented who felt like he was not representing them. And so instead of facing recall, he stepped down. When he resigned, were you living in that district, or were you living in a different district in Berkeley?
Yeah, so I did move into District 7 to run for the seat, if that's what you're asking. Yes, I did move in. So I did not realize that he was going to resign. I am very happy to have moved into District 7. District 7 is a transient population. Like so many students, I've moved more than 10 times within the 13 years that I've lived in the city of Berkeley. I'm actually running because I've actually lived in District 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, but now drawn back into 7. And I think that gives me a wealth of experience and knowledge to bring community members together. I think as somebody who works in Councilmember Bartlett's office, one of the things that I hear all the time is that students aren't part of this community, or, you know, they're transient population, so their voice doesn't matter. And I couldn't disagree more. And I think it's very harmful when we start labeling whether or not people are from here, not just because my parents are immigrants, but because I think at the end of the day, like, we really need leaders that can bring communities together to make sure that we're not accusing each other of not being from here, or, you know, or not being part of this community. I mean, those Mean Girl tactics were like definitely cute when Mean Girl was out when I was in middle school, but definitely not for UC Berkeley.
Well, thanks, James. I don't think they're cute for me for middle school either. I don't want any Mean Girl tactics. That would be my world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions we have time for.
Carol, I've had my hand
I
up for a
see
while.
that
And
you
Alana
do,
got to go
Matthew.
twice.
You've already asked a question, and I'm not calling on you now. We have to move on.
I haven't asked James a question. Alana got to go twice, and I haven't asked anything.
You're not going to get called on. Okay, we're moving on.
Why am I not getting called on?
Because we're going on to the next part of our agenda.
It just seems
Okay,
I would like to ask
you
a
like
question.
to stop arguing? We're not calling on you, and we're not discussing it. Okay, so we're going to move on the agenda. We have more measures. Oh, first of all, thank you, James. Thank you for coming. And I know it's difficult for you to get here because you were in school. And thank you for coming, and we'll see you around.
Oh, thank you. Did you want Cecilia and I to make closing thoughts? I'm happy to answer Matthew's question. I just want to give us both the opportunity.
We're kind of getting to the point where we're way behind where we should be on our meeting.
Got it. Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you, May. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to talk about a resolution for Port Chicago, and we're also going to have a couple more measures. And we also have Kate Harrison, who has dropped in and would like to address us. Kate, do you want to go now?
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you, because I hadn't asked in advance, and I
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Okay.
Come
Let
on,
me turn off
bellow
my
out
heater.
there.
Hold on, my heater's very noisy. Okay, let's try that. Is that better? Is that better?
Yes.
You can't hear me? Wow. Hold on a second. Okay. How about now? Any better?
Well, we can't do this for an hour, so go ahead and talk.
Okay, great. I'm just going to go ahead.
Yeah.
As you all know, I resigned on Tuesday night from the Berkeley City Council, which was a stunning act, I think, and a surprising one for many people. However, I just have to quote Mario Savio and say, sometimes when things are so broken, you have to throw a spanner in the works. City Hall is broken in Berkeley.
Maybe louder. You're not
City
loud
Hall
enough.
is broken in Berkeley, and it's necessary that we say stop. What we were discussing on Tuesday was the security cameras that were referenced by James for, it's not 4 million, it's $7 million. We were asked not just to approve a few cameras, but to approve the possibility of the police putting them at 18 intersections in the future if they so decided, without any kind of analysis or understanding of their impact. I don't think they're the most effective crime fighting tool, and I also think they're very expensive. There's so many other things we could be doing with this money. And in fact, the week before, we talked about a lot of alternatives for reducing crime and violence, including traffic violence. And those were, it was explained to us, there's just not the money to do any of those things. I want to differ from James. I don't think the discussion about cameras is a district issue. I think it's something that we really need to think about citywide. We all have an obligation as representatives to discuss the civil liberties impacts of these kinds of technologies. It doesn't matter whether I wanted a camera in my district or didn't, which I didn't, but I don't think that's the relevant criteria. I think we really have to talk about what are we spending our money on? Is it effective and is it harming people? One of the cameras as proposed was going to be quite adjacent to People's Park, which is another issue, as you know, that has been going on for, well, decades, literally, but most recently over the Christmas holiday, the university moved ahead to do some very illegal things involving putting up an encroachment on our streets with these large containers. And I feel that our city leadership did not resist that and went ahead and let them do that, even though it was not the right process. It wasn't the right thing to do. And in fact, they're in court on this issue, and they'll be having a court decision in less than probably 6 months. So we allowed them to hurry and do that. And we allowed them to do that and to threaten use of tear gas against protesters. As Cecilia mentioned, we had put forward in December a resolution to ask that tear gas not be used we not relieve ourselves of our obligation not to use tear gas. And that went to a policy committee. But in January, when we got back, the mayor canceled all the policy committees. So we have no policy committee meetings now. What's stuck in policy committees? The tear gas ban, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, and several other things. Yet these cameras have moved ahead without a policy. We put ahead the budget forward, the budget has moved forward without any policy. There's extreme differentiation and depending on the issue and how things are handled. They're trying to silence dissent, essentially. So I find that this situation in the city currently is not workable. We need new leadership. I am continuing my race for mayor. I think the people of Berkeley need to have a say in what's happening in Berkeley. It doesn't belong to the people inside the building who spend most of their time talking to other people inside the building. It belongs to the people. So this has been a very hard decision for me. I'm quite saddened, but also when people comment on Twitter, et cetera, this is bad for my career. I want to say, this is not my career. This is my public service. And I take that very seriously. And I take my obligation to the people to represent them faithfully very seriously. So I don't see it as a career move or not a career move. And that's frankly another issue we have in the Berkeley City Hall is people running for other offices and being very, very much on the ambition train, which I'm not. I'm just here to represent our city. So I'm happy to take questions anytime and come back at another time to discuss more of the issues facing us in Berkeley. Thank you.
Okay, would anybody like to ask questions of Kate regarding this? Okay, I guess not.
Thank you. It's very good to see everyone, and
yeah, I appreciate you asking to come.
Yeah.
And talk so people can get a little bit more idea of what was going on.
Thank you very much.
Because we don't hear that on Berkeley side, for example.
No, I see Marla's hand is up though. Margot's hand.
Okay, Margot.
Yes, I want to thank you for taking a stand on this issue, Kate. I think it was very, very important, and I know it was very, very difficult. I want to express my appreciation.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm here generally just for the meeting. As you know, I'm a member, so
I know.
here to hear what you have to say about Port Chicago, which is one of the reasons I came.
Okay, I think we'll move on to that now. Okay, Gordon Miller, who is on our board and a long time Our Revolution member, has done some research into Port Chicago and what's going on, and he has asked if he could talk about that today. Gordon? She's still here?
Hello? Yeah, I'm
Yes,
still here.
I go.
Okay. Back in 1944, there was a incident where the most powerful explosion in the world occurred, 4.6 kiloton yield equivalent. That was not exceeded until approximately a year later, when J. Robert Oppenheimer et al. Set off a 20 kiloton device by imploding plutonium. And that was a test for the Nagasaki bomb. And what was going on when this explosion occurred was there was an ammunition transport ship being loaded at Port Chicago. Port Chicago is located in Illinois. It's not on the lakefront of Lake Michigan. It's located in Concord, California. And the people who were loading the ship were African American. They were all stevedores. The officers were white. And there were 2 ships tied up when this happened. And the officers were, quote, racing the crew or racing the teams that were loading the ships. So the idea was, who can get more explosives into the ship quicker? These people didn't have any training. And sure enough, one night, the explosives went up, and like I mentioned, 4.6 kilotons. The incident killed 320 sailors. It destroyed 2 ships and cost $12 million. That's now around $200 million. Now did the Navy step back and say, "Oh, we've got to watch out. Losing 2 ships is a big deal"? Nope, they didn't care. They ordered the survivors. As soon as the place was cleaned up, they ordered them. Well, they ordered the survivors to clean up the mess and get them back to loading ammo on ships. No changes in procedures were made. The Navy ran an investigation, and the results of the investigation blamed the sailors who had been kind of vaporized in all this. The sailors who came back in refused to work. They knew a lot of people had been killed and nothing had been changed. So they basically staged a strike, a nonviolent strike. The Navy court-martialed them for mutiny, like mutiny on the Bounty, taking over a ship, and that kind of thing. These guys simply refused to do the work. The NAACP and their rising star attorney, Thurgood Marshall, tried to defend them. It didn't work. The Navy wanted to nail these guys, and they did. So fast forward to today, there's an effort underway to fully exonerate these sailors, and we're asking for your support to fully close this disgraceful incident. And I'm going to put these notes in chat along with the QRL that links to a petition that you can sign. And I'm also going to put in a copy of a resolution that was passed. And I think this OR affiliate, since Port Chicago is right in our backyard, this affiliate should endorse it. And that's the end of my presentation. Are there questions? Or have we run out of time?
No, we're almost out of time, and we still have some other things. Did you want our Revolution East Bay to endorse this, or what
Yes.
exactly?
Yeah, put through. Let me put this this thing into chat. Individual people can go to the links in Port Chicago DocX, and I'm opening it. I'm going to open it up now, and you see what it says here, Port Chicago summary. Yeah, the bottom paragraph has something where you can sign a petition put up by the Bar Association of Contra Costa County. They've got a task force working on this, and they're trying to push it through. What they want to see done is to have the Navy exonerate these people. After all sorts of things have been done involving Mark Desaulnier, various local organizations, various elected political leaders, they still haven't exonerated these guys. So progress is being made slowly and incrementally. I'd imagine if this was white sailors, things would have been quite a bit different. And there's a pamphlet you can read to find out about this, and put out by East Bay Parks. And that's also, there's a link there in the document that I believe I just attached. And I'm also going to put a QRL to a petition site run by the Bar Association. And if you hover your phone over that QRL, I've tested it, and it will take you to where you can get on with the petition.
So would you like us to send out a petition in a newsletter with a QR?
Yes, that can certainly be done.
Great. Okay, Margot, did you have your hand up? No. Okay, does anybody want to comment on this? Or shall we move on?
It would be good to close out. This is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to the country. It's a disgrace to the Navy. And it's a real blemish on the history of this area.
Okay.
I would also say that it would be good to support it during Black History Month, because this is the kind of thing that Black History Month should open our eyes to.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, let's dedicate one newsletter, maybe sometime this week to that. Does that sound good, Cheri? You're faded out again.
Yeah, will do.
Okay, great. So the two of us will work on it. And Gordon, if you could send me or Cheri, actually send it to either me or Cheri, the QR code.
Okay.
And then we can get it in the newsletter. Okay, thank you. I know you talked with the board about it before, but to hear it in more detail was really good. You know, because it's something that every once in a while you'll hear it mentioned, and a lot of people don't know what it's about or anything. And it needs to be resolved for the people who lost their lives in it.
You could say it was our answer to the Big Bang.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, we're going to move on now. We got, I think, at least one more measure that we're going to discuss. And that's a proposal for Berkeley on rent. Matthew, could you talk about that, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so as Paula has kind of mentioned, we have a problem in Berkeley. We have lots of housing that is not rent controlled, putting what are known as golden duplexes. And golden duplexes are this absurd thing where if a unit was a duplex was owner occupied on December 31st, 1979, and it's currently owner occupied. Doesn't have to be the same owner, doesn't have to have been continuously owner occupied, just it happened to be owner occupied on that one date over 40 years ago, then it is completely exempt from rent control and eviction protections. And that's really bad. It means that those tenants don't have protections. It means tenants who live in one golden duplexes that aren't currently owner occupied have to worry that somebody's going to move in and throw them out. and then sell the property for a profit. We've tried so many times to get it through the mayor and city council to change this and other problems with our rent control ordinance, but our mayor and council are just too corrupt and beholden to the real estate interests. So what we've finally decided to do is to go to the ballot, to collect signatures, to place a measure on the November ballot to strengthen our rent control ordinance. So we do a bunch of things in this proposed ballot measure, which we will be filing on Tuesday, and then start collecting signatures for. It eliminates the golden duplex exemption. It also reduces the maximum rent increase allowed every year from 7% to 3%. It makes a bunch of stuff to clean up the ordinance, like, you know, just making it easier for anybody to read so they know what their rights are and landlords know what their obligations are. It also, this is the most exciting part to me, it gives a new tenant right to organize. Just like how if you're a worker, you have the right to organize your workplace in a union and your boss is required to collectively bargain with you, this creates a similar right for tenants. If you get a majority of the tenants in your building to say they want to be represented by a tenant union, then there will be a legally enforceable obligation for your landlord to bargain with that tenant union in good faith. And this will be the strongest such protections in the country. For tenants who live in rent-controlled housing, if your landlord refuses to bargain in good faith, you will be entitled to a rent reduction. And for tenants in any housing, whether or not it's rent-controlled, if the landlord refuses to bargain in good faith, you can sue them for damages for refusing to bargain in good faith. So we need to collect a few thousand signatures. I said we're going to be filing on Tuesday, and then the clerk has, I believe, 15 days to get back to us with and to allow us to start collecting signatures. And then we'll have till, I believe it's June 9th to collect and turn those signatures in, and then it'll appear on the November ballot. This is really important. You know, we have so many folks who are unnecessarily being gentrified out of this city, and this is an important way to do this, to protect this. It's already been endorsed, has support of the Berkeley Tenants Union and East Bay DSA, and the support of our Berkeley Rent of our Revolution East Bay endorsed Berkeley Rent Board commissioners, and SCIU 1021 and UAW 2865, which is the academic student employees at the University of California.
Okay, would anybody like to ask Matthew any questions about this? I have one. Is this officially going to be on the March ballot or November?
No, it absolutely will not be on the March ballot.
Okay.
Assuming we collect enough signatures, which we feel pretty confident we're going to be able to do, we will. It will appear on the November ballot. We're going to be turning them in. We're turning in the signatures by June 9th, so that it appears on the November ballot.
Okay.
Does this just cover duplexes?
No, it does a bunch of stuff. So it's gonna cover those tenants in what are known as golden duplexes. It's finally gonna bring them into rent control and eviction protections. And then it does a bunch of other stuff for basically all tenants, so that anybody who's rent controlled, both folks in those golden duplexes or any other rent controlled housing, will have the maximum rent increase they can get. Cap tenants in all housing, including ones where the state law prevents us from rent controlling them, will have the right to collectively bargain with their landlord. So the golden duplex one is one of the things that spurred this, but we've decided that since the city council refuses to even entertain anything, we should be looking at other ways we can help slow the gentrification and fight back against it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess so. It just sounds like, you know, it's just a two apartment buildings or something.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, did we have any other measures? It seemed like there was one. Was anybody going to speak on a particular measure?
Did we do BSEP already?
Do what?
BSEP, the Berkeley Measure H1 for the schools. Did we do that already?
We did that, and it actually was on the ballot and voted.
Right, okay. The only other one I could think of I think there's an Albany one, but Saudi is not here and she would know more about that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, then I think that concludes that. So we have two more things coming up. The first at the end of the meetings, we always let everybody who would like to give a 1-minute announcement, or maybe they've never been here before and they just want to say hi or whatever, max of 1 minute. And then we stop recording. And then the final thing, if people want to stay, the meeting's officially over at that point. But if people want to stay, quite often Sudia, I'm not sure if she's still here, has great folk music that she sings, and people are welcome to stay for that if they like. Anyway, okay, so we're now open, and Cheri's first to make announcements. But she has to mute herself.
I'd like to reiterate how important it is for you to vote on this ballot that's coming in. A lot of people think that it's just not important and that it's a primary. It's very, very important, especially to go all the way down the ballot to the people that are running for Central Committee. On our Facebook page and hopefully on a newsletter this week, we will send out to you guys all of the people that we have endorsed. And we will just really, really beg you to please turn in your ballot and vote for our endorsed candidates so that we can actually make a difference. So you know how I say, when we organize, we win. And this is really important to vote the whole entire
I would like
ballot.
to mention, Yoana put earlier, while she was still here, she put the people power progressive slate, all of us up, as well as a couple individuals, and it includes the backside, which gives our platform and what people on the Central Committee actually do. Okay, Margot.
Yes, thank you very much for endorsing me for State Assembly District 14. I'm actively campaigning. I've been on 10 forums already, and my opponent Buffy Wicks has come to 1. And so she obviously doesn't take me as a threat, but that's okay. We've had a couple of minor victories in that 3 Democratic clubs have not endorsed Buffy, which is a way of saying they couldn't get the 60% that they needed. And I'm very, very pleased about that. And I appreciate your support, and send your emails out to everybody, and we'll see what happens in March. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Margot. Matthew.
Yeah, 2 quick things. One is the only people who can vote for the Alameda County Democratic Central Committee are people who are registered as Democrats. So if you or someone you know is registered as an independent or a green, make sure to tell them ASAP that they need to re-register, even just temporarily, as Democrats, so they can vote for this. So we, that we can stop at the minimum, so they can stop the corporate Democrats. Even if, so yeah, that's real important. Second thing is I want to really emphasize in the District 7 race, we need a progressive, and there's only one candidate in that race who's progressive. Cecilia supports expanding rent control. James does not. She voted against it. Cecilia supports a ceasefire. James does not. And people are literally, some of the most right-wing city council members are literally on Twitter telling people they should support James because he will vote down the ceasefire. You don't believe me? I have screenshots of it. Like, there's only one progressive in this race. We should all support Cecilia. She's got support of DSA, the Berkeley Tenants Union, Cal Berkeley Democrats. Let's get a progressive into this race. Stand up for and uplift Palestine. Uplift affordable housing, uplift rent control. We got this ballot measure because folks weren't supporting it. And also just want to note, really shocked to hear James not support TOPA. He previously told the Yes to TOPA Coalition he would support TOPA. He's actually listed on the website as an endorser. And when Alana asked him about it today, he refused to commit to TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. So he's already moving to the right, because that's who's been recruiting him, is some of the most right-wing folks in the city, like Terry Taplin.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Anybody else have their hand up and want to say something for 1 minute max?
Just, I don't know if you're.
We're not to music yet.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I was going to say, Jane Fonda's been doing a lot in the climate movement, and she has some kind of a big online conference or something coming up. I keep getting emails from her. So take a look at what
Who?
Jane Fonda's doing.
Jane Fonda. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
At one point they called her Hanoi Joan.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah.
Okay, Gordon.
You're muted. You're muted.
Gordon, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
I posted the text of a resolution about the Port Chicago 50. Just now, I was searching for it, and the computer really stashed it away.
Okay. Okay. Ballots are going out. Please vote for the right candidates on the people-powered progressives. And I can't think of what they call themselves. Maybe somebody here can tell me what they're called in Contra Costa. They're Damas for United Progress. Anyway, we're all endorsed by the National Our Revolution group, which we're proud to say. And they've been working with us. They want us to win. We want a big change in Alameda County. We want to have people in the Central Committee that are going to vote for candidates and support them as Democrats, such as Pamela Price. They didn't support Pamela. They didn't support a ceasefire. And et cetera, et cetera. Stuff has been going on for, several years. So we want to have a big change there and have people that we can trust to vote for what's important to us. Okay, I think we can stop recording now. Thank you, everybody, for being